But the more information that we can give our brains on the actions that we're doing are the right actions to achieve our goals, it just gives us the right amount of fuel to keep going. So lo and behold, if you struggled on the phones before, if you feel like you're struggling on the phones now, sharpening the blade and jumping on meetings like this and investing in private coaching groups like this is a step in the right direction, because what you're doing right now in solar is the smartest possible thing that you can do outside of getting a team of setters on the phone. So hope that makes sense. Next, let's move into the openers. So if you guys have the Cold Call Solar Pro course, you know that there's 2 scripts that we use. And then if you follow the content for a while, you know that I have one of my most famous openers that people kind of know me for, the sorry it took me so long to get back to you. We're going to discuss those right now and then why they're so important. But obviously one thing that I think probably all sales trainers say is that the first 5 to 15 seconds are the most important part of the call. They either make or break that call. They either set someone up to want to listen to you, or we're going to give the impression that makes them want to get off the phone or be rude before they get off the phone. But it all happens in that first 5 to 15 seconds, that first sentence that we're saying. If this is true, people buy from people who remind them of their friends. If the above is true, it has to also be true that people want to talk to those who remind them of their friends. And this is what I mean by that. One thing that really shocks me about a lot of newer reps that come work with us and get on the phones is that they think that their background has to be totally silent when we're making cold calls. They like to get their kids out of the room. They like to make sure that they're in the office where it's totally silent. But let me ask you this. If your friends, loved ones, spouses, etc., called you right now or at any point in time, are you more likely to enjoy that conversation when there's some form of noise or action or excitement versus being totally silent? The point that I'm trying to make is we never call our friends and loved ones with a silent background. Believe it or not, your environment and the background noise helps you on the call. Now, I'm not saying you need to have, it totally loud and be calling in the middle of, a room full of people or a party or whatever the case may be. But when people can hear other people in the background, when they can hear just almost any noise at all, it conveys to that prospect that this is an actual human being on the line and not someone who's just trying to scam me. So on the flip side, when you get a cold call and it's totally silent and that person's tonality already isn't right, and maybe their scripting is kind of awkward and it sounds too transactionally like business, like, hey, how are you going? I'm calling from XYZ company and we just wanted to, it sounds very transactional. It sounds very business, and it does not mentally remind the prospect of friends and family. On the flip side, when friends and family call, they sound excited, they're joking, they're laughing, their background house noise. So what you want to do in this moment is you want to psychologically, as much as you can on your background and in your setting, give them a very similar feel to when someone calls that they actually want to talk to. Now, I hope that makes sense. What I mean by that again is have some element of noise in the background. Basically anything that could really make you comfortable. So I like to tell people all the time, if you have any type of podcast or soft music, or again, if you do work from home and you have family around, allow them to be in the room. They don't have to be noisy right next to you, but shooing them out of the room, it always makes you feel distracted, especially if it's children, because you have to worry about them being quiet in another room. But if they're in the same room and you can allow and accept that they're gonna make noise, you will be more comfortable to focus on your calls. And then when your prospect hears other humans around you, it is gonna reaffirm to them that, oh, this is an actual person. This is not a scam call. This is not someone who's trying to take advantage of me, and they're going to be more likely to listen to you. So your environment and your background noise, believe it or not, actually work in your favor if you allow them to. Now, if you get awkward about the noise, that's a little bit different, but the more comfortable you can be, the more comfortable of vibrations that you'll be able to basically communicate through the phone, and your environment and background noise can really set you up for success. The other part about that goes kind of hand in hand is your energy and your mood. Same way with your best friend calling you. Think about your best friend, whoever you talk to on the phone the most right now. If they called you, assuming you are free, so not right now, when they call you, they generally have a particular type of tone that they start off the call with, whether that's a joke, whether that's excitement, whether that's bubbly energy, whatever the case may be. You need to mentally think about transferring that similar type of feeling at the opener every single time on the call, so that you can basically give similar vibrations to the prospect that makes them want to talk to you. Well, now I can't see my screen when I flip over, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Awesome. Let's keep it rolling. So the opening lines that we talked about before, 2 lines that I use, and both of these are in Cold Call Solar Pro, but they really help either type of rep. The first one, hey Rich, sorry it took me so long to get back to you, and then we pause. The second one, hey Rich, this is Richard with Rebus, man. I know you weren't expecting this cold call out of the blue, so I'm gonna be super fast, man. Do you mind if I still just 30 seconds to specifically tell you why I'm calling you right now, Rich? And then you can let me know if you want to keep speaking from there or not. Would you be opposed to just 30 seconds here? Now, this is so powerful because it keeps authenticity and full transparency right at the beginning of the call. And this is the number one thing missing on 99.9% of cold calls, and definitely 100% of people knocking doors for solar. When most companies cold call for solar or they hit the doors for solar, they always start off with something about net metering, something to kind of confuse the customer so that they can listen longer. But that particular line, which is obviously vastly different from that first one, gets the customer put the ball totally on the court, right? As far as, I'm cold calling you right now. This is my name. This is my company. This is a cold call. All I need is 30 seconds to let you know why I'm specifically calling you. And if you don't want to hear from me from there, I'll never call you again. What that does is, if they do say yes to that, they are going to totally be listening after that point. The problem with a lot of openers or secondary openers right now is they don't tell the customer or the homeowner exactly what is going to happen and exactly what we need. And we keep them in a state of curiosity almost too long, to where it upsets them, frustrates them, and then makes them want to get off the phone. But when you can basically be totally authentic from the very first part of that conversation, and you actually get that 30 seconds, now they're listening and bought in. What happens with any other sales pitch when we don't get a mutual agreement, which is what this is, a mutual agreement to participate in the process, the prospect is only half listening. They're kind of listening, they're kind of not. They're mentally trying to figure out, is this a scam or not? Why is this person calling me? What do they really want? So they're listening with two different ears, like a divided attention. But with an opener like this, which is called a permission-based opener, which is what number 2 is, again, it gets them totally bought into what you're about to say next. It increases the likelihood of actually setting that appointment so much more when the prospect has agreed to let you pitch them. Once you get permission to pitch, they're in the game. They're not thinking about if it's a scam call. They're not thinking about anything else. They're actually excited that you were different. People don't usually give this type of just open authenticity at the beginning of their pitch. And when you can separate yourself from any other salesperson, it's a totally different ball game. I've done that. That's honestly been like my magic trick throughout my entire career of sales, believe it or not. It's just by putting on the table exactly what the customer is thinking but isn't saying in every scenario, which I don't have enough time to dive into that. But when it comes to objections, when it comes to presenting, when it comes to just almost anything, we typically know what the customer's like barriers are. And oftentimes we want to dance around it or tiptoe around it. And I like to just call it out and put it right on the table so that we can both get past it with a mutual agreement and move forward. And then I find that the sales process and closing is like 1,000 times easier. But those two lines, if you guys aren't using those at the beginning of your call, you need to get Cold Call Solar Pro, and you need to see how effective these are. By the way, what are you saying on your call?
Yeah, I think I found some kind of script online. It basically goes, hey, I'm looking for Richard. And you say yes. And I'll say, yes, I only have a minute. I'm actually one of the owners for the Zero Down Solar Program. But it seems like, when you drop that S-bomb, it's just an immediate click, you got hung up on. So
Yeah. You got to check out my other script. So next week, we're going to go over objections. And it also depends on your market. Your market is going to be a highly sought after place right now. But in the event when you are transitioning to talk about solar, if you are calling a saturated market or a market that's solar heavy, I don't like to really use the word saturated because I don't think any markets are truly saturated yet, but you want to throw out all of the worst case things to a saturated prospect as possible. I'll give you an example. So in our script, if the customer goes, let's say right after either one of these things, either one of these opening lines, they say, is this solar? Are you guys calling about solar again? Then we immediately go into something that is going to completely dismantle anything that they're about to say. So we'll go, hey man, I know you've probably been talked to by 100 people in the past about solar. And the problem with looking into solar before was that it was super expensive. It required a down payment. And then in some cases, it even put a lien on the house so you couldn't move for 20 years. I'm sure you've heard that before, right? Well, our program is totally different. But again, man, I don't want to waste your time if you're not a good fit, because you might not be a good fit at all. How much are you typically paying for power per month? So what we do in that response is we basically beat them to the punch. We don't want them to give them opportunity to talk about how many people call and knock them. So I'm getting that out of the way. Hey man, I know you've probably been talked to about 100 people about solar in the past. And then we want to talk about the expenses. Most people, either if they've got a quote before, it was too expensive and they didn't move forward, or if they've looked into it, maybe their neighbor or Facebook, someone told them there is a barrier around price that's preventing them from either getting a consultation or moving forward. So we want to get that one out of the way as well. In the past, it was super expensive. It either required a down payment, sometimes even required a lien on your house so you couldn't move for 20 years. Those are the top 3 objections, if you will, that people from saturated markets have. So the second that they say anything about, is this solar? solar? Are you with a solar company? I'm getting all those three things out, and I'm saying, but our program is totally different than that. Basically saying, hey, this is way different than anything you've ever heard before, so this is why you should listen to what I'm about to say next. So we get that out of the way, and then we gain call control by saying, but pull back, you might not be a good fit for our program at all. If so, I don't want to waste your time. Oh, by the way, how much are you guys typically paying for your power? So I cleared all his or her potential objections out of the way. I did a pullback by saying, but hey, you might not be a good fit for this program anyways, even though it is totally different than anything that you've heard in the past. But and then I'm going to get back on track with my process of getting to book them. How much are you typically paying for power per month? So if you have a start to finish script, man, I'm telling you, include that, especially if you're calling in any type of market where a lot of your prospects are getting called or not often. Being able to mention all of those things and saying that, hey, but our program is totally different than the guys who are knocking on your door or other companies that are calling you. And that's why we're reaching out to you today. And then being able to put in those top 3 objections before you get to that point, it just makes the whole call a lot easier from there.
Okay, cool.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
And then next, let's talk about tonality. So your tonality sets the stage for the conversation. A friendly and respectful tone can create a positive first impression, making the homeowner more receptive to what you have to say. In a second, we're going to talk about uptone versus downtone. And tonality, the way that I like to train it, and people don't understand, like it literally is our superpower on the phones. That's why I talk about energy and background noise. All of our senses are hearing senses on the phone. That's all we have because we don't have a physical presence to gauge. When I knock someone's door, whether they peek through the things or whether they open the door, they look at me and they have to audio gauge and then visually gauge if they want to engage with me or not, right? But on the phones, it's all audio. So every single thing that we can do audio wise, from background noise to the tone of our voice, is our superpower. It is our weapon. I like to train tonality when we think about scripting and phone sales the same way that you guys listen to music, the same way that you sing your favorite song in the car, the same way that when your favorite movie comes on that you can quote line by line, you say it up and down, you sing it. Your script has to be the same way. There has to be parts of your script where you make your voice go up on purpose and other parts of your script where you make it go down on purpose and you slow down and you're more calm and confident. And other times where you just kind of want to be more bubbly in the song, right? If you aren't looking at your script the same way that you would sing your favorite song, it would explain why we're not really conveying confidence and conviction and certainty to our homeowners, because we're probably going through our script and our calls in a monotone voice. Another ninja tip that I can give you guys in this short amount of time is every single day you need to listen to yourself, listen to your recorded calls, and then daily before you jump on the phones, you need to record yourself, a video of you reading your own script. That's really the only way that to get better, because once you start to see how you sound, and this, trust me, coming from someone who has to watch videos of himself all the time and listen to himself all the time, it's always uncomfortable. It never gets easy. To be honest, I don't necessarily like doing it, but it has to be done for me to accomplish my goals, right? But nothing makes me more effective than watching myself speak so that I can get clarity on what needs to be improved. So the more calls that you make, if you can listen back to those calls and find, what did I do well? What did I do that I could improve on? And what's one takeaway that I had from this call? If you can do that every single day on the phones, there's no way that you would improve week to week, day to day. First impressions, your tone sets the stage. The right tone helps build rapport and trust with the person you're calling. A warm and genuine tone can make the homeowner feel more comfortable and opening to listening to your message. This is the biggest reason why we always want to start with an uptone, with that inviting, excited, bubbly energy. If I take you back to the scenario of your best friend, spouse, etc., calling you right now in your downtime, when they answer the phone and you hear their voice, it does something in your brain. It's like a home feeling. You feel comfortable, you feel at home, you feel peaceful. When a debt collector calls you or a salesperson calls you, you are immediately on guard, or you don't want to take that call. So you guys have to think, how can I convey to this person just comfortableness, just exciting energy, just laid backness, even though I'm very highly tactical and super intentional about every single word that I'm saying. But I need, when this person answers the phone, everything they hear to make them feel comfortable, curious, and then excited to hear what I'm about to say. Engagement. A good tone can grab the homeowner's attention and keep them engaged in the conversation. If you sound enthusiastic and interested, they're more likely to stay on the line and hear you out. But again, if we're on their, hey, yeah, no, we're just calling that metering. We know you guys had a lot of rates in that area, and we just wanted to see if you had had a chance to get a savings report. Like, people don't really want to hear that. I sound robotic, I sound transactional, and it's not exciting. I love to break away and joke and laugh, even if nothing's funny, right? Finding a way to laugh on the phone just keeps people engaged because you don't sound like a boring person. So let me scroll down a little bit more. Respect. Using the right tone shows respect for the homeowner's time and preferences. Being polite and considerate can also increase the likelihood of them willing to talk to you further. The reason why this is huge right now, and this is actual data that I'm about to give you, we get in the United States about 1 billion cold calls specifically from India, like not even a lot of other places. Obviously, we're getting cold calls from all over, but India alone sends 1 billion cold calls to the US a day. And a large part of, for whatever reason, what they're being trained on over there is to just, the second they get us on the phone, is to just kind of vomit over the script. We have a different way of doing things here, way of speaking here, and just geographically, so does each state. The way that people communicate in New York versus LA is totally different. And so knowing how to communicate the best with people in your market is super important. The reason why respect in this scenario is important because, again, the way that someone deems respect, if you're cold calling New York and Boston versus Irvine, California, is totally different versus Dallas, Texas, totally different. So knowing that market and knowing what this ideal prospect even deems as a respectful approach can make or break your call as well. And then lastly, effectiveness. Ultimately, the right tone increases the effectiveness of your cold call efforts. Again, people are more likely to respond positively to someone who sounds friendly, professional, and genuine, which can lead to more successful outcomes. One thing that I actually don't like about what I just read is the word professional. I think it's actually given me a much more effective training process when I tell people to actually not be as professional. Professional, when we hear it in this scenario, makes us think of business, right? And so when you try to sound too professional on a cold call, you come across very transactional. If you call them Mr. and Mrs. and refer to them as their last name. The only time someone calls me Mr. McCoy is literally when I'm in the bank. So if someone cold calls me and they say, "Hey, Mr. McCoy," I immediately know that this is a transactional experience. And if it interrupted my day, I'm already on guard and I don't really want to have this conversation. So in most cases, it is very helpful to not be as professional. That doesn't mean you're not going to be a professional, but once you start the pitch, once you have gotten the opener down, they know why you're calling, they've agreed to listen, and now it's time for you to actually explain the program details, explain how solar works, explain how the consultation is going to happen. That's when you want to be professional. Before then, they need to be reminded that you are genuine, friendly, and not here to sell them anything, and not here to obviously scam them, which is the biggest one. Now, I've used these words quite a bit, and now I'll break them down if you're unfamiliar with them, but uptone versus downtone. Uptone, think of this like being cheerful and lively. You sound friendly and you sound excited. Uptone, one thing that we use at the beginning of the call. "Hey, Ike, sorry it took me so long to get back to you, man." That's an uptone. Or, "I'm not here to sell you anything at all. My job is just to get the savings report for your home. Have you guys gotten a savings report yet?" Uptone is all about making people feel safe and curious. So it's like, think about it like talking to a child or a toddler. You know, when you talk, or a puppy, like I know if you guys have dogs, you definitely got a puppy voice, right? When we talk to dogs and children, our voices go up because we want them to feel safe and happy with us. Same thing at the beginning of the call. You want to have that uptone. Only time you don't want to have an uptone or maintain an uptone at the beginning of the call is if someone who's very monotone answers. So if you call a prospect and he's like, "This is Gary," you don't want to have too much of an uptone with a very monotone or low tone man or woman. Next, let's talk about downtone. So downtone is more about being calm and confident. Your voice is steady and relaxed. You might say something like, "Did you guys get a chance to get a savings report for your home yet?" Or, "We actually have availability this week. Would tomorrow or the day after be best for you and your spouse?" Again, downtone is about being calm and collected, and then that confidence can just help people help convey trust and authority to your prospects. Always use a downtone when you are making a suggestion on booking. Essentially, think about it this way. Any type of closing statement or statement where you want to move forward, your energy has to be confident. So what can you do with your voice to convey confidence and certainty in the recommendation that you're making to the prospect? You can't make a recommendation to the prospect in an uptone because it's too easy to say no to. "Did you guys want to go ahead and book tomorrow? We've actually got availability tomorrow and the day after. Like, which one?" It makes it almost make me want to say no when someone's making a recommendation in an uptone because it sounds weak, doesn't sound confident. If you're making a recommendation to me, I need to know that it is certainly in my best interest. And the way that someone can make me feel that way without even explaining is their tone in which the way they do it. You have the right vehicle by prospecting remote and being able to reach more homes and more people in a short amount of time for less energy and less money. money.
Seriously.
This whole thing is about leverage. In business, the only thing that matters is leverage. There's something that I'll talk about probably on every call, but the fact that you're doing that, the right vehicle in the right market, and you are surrounding yourself with other people also trying to be the absolute best at this particular thing, I think that's how you get phenomenal results, my man. So hats off to you for taking a step and joining the group.